It started just past the county line, where the highway thins to 2 lanes and the farmland opens like a dark ocean on either side. Rain moved in slow, slanted sheets across the windshield, and the wipers dragged back and forth with a tired, rubbery sigh. The night felt uninhabited. No porch lights, no passing semis, just wet asphalt and the low hum of my tires carving through it. The siren drifted in from somewhere behind me. At first I assumed it was miles back, a patrol car or ambulance on the interstate. The sound was faint, smeared thin by distance. A rising wail, then a falling one. It carried that hollow, metallic edge that emergency sirens get when they're too far away to be urgent. I checked my mirrors. Nothing but fog and the glossed black ribbon of road reflecting my own headlights. The sound should have changed as I drove. It should have grown louder or softer, shifted pitch as the distance closed or widened. Instead, it hovered at the same volume, the same mournful oscillation. High to low, low to high, over and over. The Doppler shift was wrong. If it were behind me and stationary, it would fade. If it were moving faster than me, it would gain. But it remained suspended, like it was pacing me from a fixed distance I couldn't measure. I turned down the radio. Static filled the speakers for a second, then resolved into a faint weather report from a town I'd already passed. The siren slid through the gaps in the broadcast, braiding itself into the static until I couldn't tell which was which. High, low, high, low. I told myself it was traveling along some parallel county road. Sound can do strange things in open fields, can skim along the ground and carry for miles. That's what I'd read once. Still, I pressed the accelerator. The engine responded with a muted growl. The speedometer climbed to 70, then 75. The rain blurred sideways across the glass. The farmland became a smear of darker darkness. The siren kept pace. Same distance, same volume. I checked the mirrors again, squinting through the watery distortion. Headlights have a way of appearing from nothing, first as pinpricks, then as twin stars. But the road behind me was empty. No reflections but my own. No red and blue strobes diffused through the fog. The wail dipped, rose. For a moment, I wondered if it was in front of me and I'd misjudged direction. Sound plays tricks at night, flattens space. I rolled down the window a crack. Cold, wet air rushed in, carrying the smell of soil and something metallic. The siren remained behind, or at least that's where it felt like it was. I passed a mile marker, 214. A minute later, through the rain-streaked windshield, another sign appeared. 214. I slowed without meaning to. The sign stood on the right shoulder, reflective paint gleaming in my headlights. The same dent at the base. The same slight tilt to the left. I glanced in the rearview mirror as I drove by, expecting to see it shrink into darkness. Instead, there was only fog. The siren's pitch crested, then fell. High, low. The rhythm began to feel deliberate, like breathing. I tried the radio again. The weather report had dissolved into static. Beneath it, I thought I heard something else. A thin, reedy tone that matched the siren's key. When I changed stations, every frequency carried the same thing. Not music, not speech, just a distant wail stitched into white noise. I turned the radio off completely. The silence inside the car thickened, but it wasn't true silence. There was the whir of the blower, the faint rattle of something in the glove compartment, the tires whispering over water, and the siren. Always the siren. I decided to test it. At the next crossroad, little more than a paved cut between fields, I turned left without signaling. The headlights swept across rows of corn stubble and a sagging fence. My tires hissed as they crossed pooled water. For a few seconds, there was nothing but the engine and the rain. Then the siren adjusted. It didn't get louder or softer. It simply pivoted with me, as if whatever produced it had anticipated the turn. The sound slid from directly behind to slightly off-center, correcting itself until it settled back into that same impossible distance. High, low. I felt a tightening in my chest that had nothing to do with fear at first. Felt like recognition. Like when someone calls your name across a crowded room and you know, without seeing them, that it's meant for you. The road narrowed. The fields gave way to scattered trees, their trunks flashing pale in my headlights. I passed a farmhouse set far back from the road. One upstairs window glowed dimly. As I drove by, I glanced up. For an instant, I saw my own headlights reflected in the glass. But the angle was wrong. The house was behind me by then. The reflection should have been sliding off to the side. Instead, it faced me head-on, as if the window were positioned in front of the car, not behind it. I blinked, and it was gone. The siren continued. My phone showed 11:42 p.m. 10 minutes later, it still showed 11:42. The rain lightened to a mist. The fog thickened. It pooled low along the road, swirling in my beams. The world shrank to a tunnel of white and gray. I passed another mile marker. My stomach dropped. I had turned. I had changed roads. There was no way I could be on the same stretch of highway. Yet the sign stood there, identical in every detail. The siren swelled slightly, just enough that I could feel it in my teeth. Not louder in volume, just closer in texture. Like the sound had gained edges. I pressed harder on the gas. The engine protested. The needle hovered near 80. The road ahead bent gently to the right. The siren's pitch rose as if in anticipation. High, low. The pattern began to stretch. The high note lingered longer, trembling before falling. The low note held, vibrating through the steering wheel. It no longer sounded like a warning. It sounded like a summons. I realized something then that made my hands go cold. The siren wasn't fluctuating with my speed because it wasn't chasing me. It was matching me. I tested it again, this time by braking sharply. The seatbelt locked against my chest. The tires hissed louder as they cut through water. The siren dipped in pitch at the exact same moment, elongating the low note as if absorbing my deceleration. When I accelerated again, the high note surged in tandem. It wasn't behind me. It was synchronized. I became aware of another sound beneath it, a faint, rhythmic clicking. At first I thought it was something in the dashboard. Then I recognized it as a turn signal. But I hadn't touched the lever. The indicator on the dash blinked green. Left, blink, blink. Each flash of light reflected faintly in the fog ahead. I reached to switch it off. The lever resisted, stiff and unyielding. The blinking continued. The road curved left. I hadn't meant to follow it, but my hands moved with it, steering into the bend. The siren's high note stretched thin and eager. As I rounded the curve, the fog thinned just enough to reveal something far ahead. A glow, red and blue, diffused and shimmering in the mist. My breath caught. Finally, headlights, patrol car, an ambulance pulled onto the shoulder, but the glow didn't flicker like strobes. It pulsed in time with the siren. High note, blue. Low note, red. And it wasn't off to the side of the road. It was centered, directly in my lane. I slowed, heart hammering. The glow grew clearer, resolving into twin circles of light hovering just above the asphalt. They weren't attached to a vehicle. There was no silhouette, no grille, no windshield. Just light and sound, waiting. The siren no longer felt distant. It vibrated through the hood, through the steering column, through my bones. My mirrors were empty, because nothing had ever been behind me. The realization unfolded with a terrible calm. The siren hadn't been following. It had been leading, calling me forward, mile after identical mile, bending the road back on itself until I had nowhere else to go. The turn signal kept blinking. Left, blink, left, blink. The fog parted fully for the first time all night. There was no crossroad, no shoulder, no field, just the two lights suspended in the center of the highway, pulsing in perfect rhythm. High, low, and in the space between those pulses, I heard something else. A faint, mechanical intake of breath, like a door unlatching. The glow intensified, washing the windshield in red and blue. I eased my foot off the brake. The car rolled forward on its own momentum. The siren peaked, no longer distant at all but surrounding me, inside the cabin, inside my head. High, low, The lights ahead widened, stretching into a corridor of color. Waiting. For me. It happened on a stretch of road I'd driven a dozen times before. A two-lane highway that cut through state land for nearly 40 miles without a single town or exit. By day, it was unremarkable. At night, it felt like a corridor carved through something older than pavement. Rain had fallen earlier, and the asphalt still held a dark, lacquered shine. My headlights glazed the road in pale gold, illuminating steam that lifted in thin ribbons. The forest pressed close on both sides, trunks rising like columns just beyond the narrow shoulder. No streetlights, no houses, just trees, dense and unbroken. The wind moved through them in long, continuous breaths. At first, it was only that wind, a low rush that thickened and thinned, bending branches and setting leaves into motion. The sound filtered through the cracked window, mingling with the hum of my tires and the faint vibration of the engine. Then it shifted. The forest beside the highway whispered my name in the wind. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear at first. Just a suggestion shaped by the gusts, syllables formed by the friction of leaves. I felt it before I understood it. A tightening in my throat, a flicker of recognition. I told myself it was pareidolia. The mind looks for patterns, even in noise, especially in noise. The next gust came stronger, rattling the treetops. The whisper stretched longer this time, almost amused. Said my name again. I gripped the steering wheel harder and checked my mirrors out of reflex. The rear view showed nothing but the empty ribbon of road unraveling into darkness. My side mirrors reflected the slick shoulder and a blur of branches. No headlights, no tail lights, no other cars for miles. I reached for my phone, more for comfort than anything. No signal, just the hollow outline of empty bars in the corner of the screen. I'd known this stretch was dead zone territory, but seeing it felt different now. The forest shifted again. My name rode the wind, softer, closer. I rolled up the window. Inside the car, the sound dulled to a muffled rush. The cabin felt sealed, insulated. The dashboard lights glowed a steady green. The heater exhaled warm air against my legs. For a minute, nothing happened. Then the whisper seeped in anyway. Not through the glass, through the vents. It threaded itself through the steady hum of the blower, weaving into the mechanical rhythm. The pitch of the wind changed just enough to carve out syllables. My name, drawn out. Testing. I turned off the fan. The sudden quiet rang in my ears. Without the engine's steady note, the interior felt smaller, fragile. Outside, the wind paused. The trees went still in a way that felt deliberate. No rustling, no creak of branches, just an absence. I drove on, heart beating louder than it should have. The next mile marker appeared in my headlights. 67. I passed it, watching it flick by in the corner of my vision. 5 minutes later, through a thinning veil of fog, another sign rose from the shoulder. Same reflective paint, same shallow dent near the base. I slowed instinctively. The whisper returned, threaded through a low gust. Closer now. It didn't echo like sound traveling from a distance. It felt immediate, like someone leaning toward the passenger window and speaking through cupped hands. I accelerated. The engine responded, the tires humming louder against the wet road. The trees blurred into vertical streaks. The whisper kept pace. It didn't fade behind me. It didn't trail off. It moved alongside the car, adjusting effortlessly to my speed. I tried the radio. Static flared, then settled into a faint station playing something instrumental. Underneath the music, barely audible, the wind formed a counterpoint. My name, layered beneath the melody. I switched stations. The same thing, static and whisper. I turned the radio off completely. The fog thickened ahead, swallowing the beam of my headlights so that the world ended 20 feet in front of me. The trees seemed closer now, their trunks leaning subtly toward the road. The shoulder narrowed. The white line trembled at the edge of my vision. Another gust. My name, spoken with unmistakable clarity. I swallowed and glanced to the right. For a split second, between two trunks, I thought I saw movement, a darker shape within darkness, pacing the car. Not stepping forward, not retreating, just keeping even. When I blinked, it was gone. The rational part of my mind kept assembling explanations. Wind through hollow branches can produce tonal sounds. The human ear is primed to hear speech. Fatigue can warp perception. But fatigue doesn't explain how the whisper corrected itself when I changed lanes to avoid a pothole. I drifted slightly left. The wind shifted left. My name followed, adjusting to my new position as if triangulating me. I began to feel watched. Not in the vague way you sometimes do in empty places, but precisely, as if something beyond the tree line knew exactly where my car was, exactly how fast it was moving, exactly which seat I occupied. I passed a clearing, a break in the forest where the land dipped down into a shallow ravine. My headlights swept across the open space. In the side mirror, I saw the reflection of my own car. But it was a beat behind. The brake lights in the mirror flared half a second after I'd touched the pedal. I stared, pulse quickening. When I tapped the brakes again, the reflection hesitated before responding. The whisper slid through the pause. My name softer now. Familiar. Not calling. Reminding. I checked the clock on the dashboard. 11:17 p.m. I drove for what felt like 15 minutes, counting breaths, counting the rhythm of the wipers. 11:17 p.m. The mile marker ahead came into view. A pressure built behind my eyes. Not panic exactly, but a dawning understanding that the road was no longer behaving like a road. It had become a loop or something shaped like one. And the forest was not simply beside it. It was surrounding it. The trees began to lean inward more noticeably, their upper branches knitting together overhead. The fog caught in the canopy, glowing faintly in my headlights. Shadows moved within it. Not distinct shapes, but disturbances, as if something passed from trunk to trunk. The whisper grew steadier. It no longer waited for strong gusts. It flowed continuously, riding even the smallest stir of air. My name over and over until it lost the sharp edges of identity and became a rhythm. I realized with a sick, creeping certainty that it wasn't searching for me. It had already found me. The whisper didn't roam randomly along the tree line. It tracked the driver's side window, hovering just beyond the glass. When I leaned toward the passenger seat, it thinned. When I straightened again, it strengthened. Testing. Learning. I pressed the accelerator harder, pushing past the speed limit, tires skimming the slick asphalt. The engine strained. The forest kept pace effortlessly. The trees blurred, but the whisper remained perfectly clear. Ahead, the fog thinned enough to reveal something new. A break in the tree line, not a clearing this time, but an opening directly onto the road. No sign, no marked turnoff, just a narrow corridor between trunks, dark and waiting. As my headlights touched it, the wind surged. My name rang out distinctly, carried from that opening. Not from all sides now. From there. An invitation. The road curved gently toward the gap, though I was certain it had been straight moments before. My hands tightened on the wheel. The car drifted toward the right shoulder without my intending it. The whisper softened, becoming almost tender. I corrected the steering, pulling back into the center of the lane. The wind sharpened in response. The whisper followed, louder, insistent. I understood then that the forest wasn't trying to chase me down. It was trying to redirect me, guide me. The opening in the trees loomed closer. The darkness within it was thicker than the night around it, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. My phone buzzed suddenly in the cup holder. I flinched. No signal bars, but a notification. Unknown contact. The message preview contained only one word. Here. The whisper aligned with it perfectly. My name. Here. My hands trembled. I kept the wheel straight, refusing the curve, refusing the invitation. The road shuddered beneath the tires, a subtle vibration like running over rumble strips. The fog thickened again, obscuring the opening. For a moment, I thought I'd passed it. Then the mile marker emerged from the mist. And just beyond it, the same narrow break in the trees, positioned as if it had never moved. The forest beside the highway whispered my name in the wind, patient and certain. It didn't need me to turn tonight. The road was long. The signal would never return. And as I drove past the opening once more, the whisper changed, not louder, not closer, but deeper, resonating through the frame of the car. It wasn't calling me to the forest. It was telling me I was already inside it. The trees on both sides leaned inward again, their branches knitting overhead until the highway felt less like an escape route and more like a path drawn deliberately through something vast. My name followed me mile after identical mile, not fading, not chasing, simply keeping pace as if it had all the time in the world.